So in this video, we're going to look at some factorization, some basics. So if you're an algebra student doing algebra for the first time, this can be a help to you. If you're revising and just need to get refresh on your algebra, this is the basis of, we're going to look at the difference of two squares, which is factorization. So here's the formula for the difference of two squares that we're going to be looking at, and it basically says that you've got a squared minus b squared, that's the difference of the two squares, and it is equal to the sum of the two numbers and the difference of the two numbers, the product of that. So basically what's happening is, the way this works is we take the square root of the first number, okay, and the first number here, if you notice, is just the square root of that is a, and the square root of the second number, or second entity here, is b squared, which is b, the square root of that. And then we take these numbers and basically plug them in here, and we've done our job. And that basically gives us the factorization. So let's look at a quick example of how the factorization works, in fact. So we have, for instance, x squared minus 4. Now x squared minus 4, the square root of x squared is x. The square root of 4 is 2. So we have x plus 2, and then of course the same thing with the difference of the two numbers. So if you've got the two numbers, and once we have the two numbers, we take the sum, multiply it by the difference. That's known as the difference of two squares. Let's try another example. X squared minus 25. So in this case, the square root of the x is squared, x squared is just x, plus the square root of 25 is 5, multiplied by x minus 5. Pretty simple. Now sometimes you may have a number that doesn't have a perfect square, like this here. Now in this, it doesn't stop us from actually trying to factorize this. So the square root of the x squared, as long as you have the x squared, so that's going to be x squared minus 8, so it's going to be x plus square root 8 into x minus square root 8. Now you would then argue then, well what if I got this as x only, for instance, say x minus 7 for the sake of argument. This is usually never done, but it can be. So you could write it as this. Just take the square root, and it's just going to be square root of 7. So basically, if required, we can force, in fact, the factorization to happen. But I want to warn you that this usually is something we don't do. So this one, just think of this as a rather strange example, or an odd example, usually not done, but it can be. Now the squares don't actually have to be just squares. So here, for instance, what I mean by that is you could have x4 minus 16, for instance. Now x4 minus 16, the square root of x4 is x squared, and the square root of 16 is 4. So then that leaves us with x squared minus 4. Now you should immediately notice here that, well, this here seems to have another possible factorization possible. So I'm sorry, this has another well, we can factorize this further. So this can be written as x plus 2 into x minus 2, just like the first example in this case. And that basically would then complete the factorization. So this is how the difference of two squares actually works. It's quite simple and straightforward. I hope you are able to practice some questions and understand how we've done this. Thank you.